Thank you, Lauren. Welcome back to AWE, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I was thinking, wow, it feels like we were just here, and that's because we were. It wasn't so long ago, so glad to be back on our normal AWE schedule. I'm going to jump right in. We've got a lot to cover this morning, and I'd like to start by defining holographic collaboration, at least as we think about it. We think about this as the ability for hybrid teams to communicate using 3D models as holograms. And when we're talking about hybrid teams, we're all familiar with hybrid teams being geographically dispersed. And of course, that's only increased with the pandemic as we see more and more of that. Now, when we talk about 3D models, we're talking about a certain type of 3D models. That is models that represent things in the physical world. We also refer to these as digital twins. Now, there's lots of uses for this kind of capability. We're all familiar with this type of technology for training. We're familiar with using it for sales. But we believe the most powerful use of this technology is to design and build things and build a better world. And whether you're making sneakers, stores, or satellites, we believe holographic collaboration can drive a new level of productivity and sustainability. And I think I'd also add, to the extent there are killer applications for AR and VR tech in enterprise, this is absolutely one of them. All right, so now I'd like to talk a little bit about what the design and engineering process looks like today out in the real world. And it starts with a hybrid team, maybe the ultimate hybrid team. People are not only geographically dispersed, they're in different locations, they're in different time zones, different languages, different skill sets, in different companies, in different functions. This is quite a communications challenge. And there's another rub. That rub is everything that we're designing and building is an actual 3D thing that exists in real 3D space. Yet, we communicate about these things and we design and build them through flat screens. Now, there are some of us, specifically engineers, who are able to visualize 3D extremely well from a flat screen. Sadly, not everybody involved in this hybrid team has that capability. And so what happens when you've got a big group of people that need to communicate and have different skill sets? Your communication ends up at the lowest common denominator that everybody can understand. And that, my friends, is pictures and text. Yeah, this is how most of this is actually happening in the real world, and hopefully this is resonating with those of you that feel this frustration. We take pictures largely from CAD and other 3D tools. We take those pictures, we put them in PDFs, we put them in PowerPoints, we annotate them, then we share them, right? We put this stuff in Slack, we put this stuff in email, we share it in a Zoom call, and it's a mess. Right? There's no central location for all this information, and the reality is we're making decisions with imperfect and incomplete information. And the reality is mistakes are made, budgets are blown, products are late, sales are lost. Now, the problem and the challenge here isn't just on the digital front, right? This process as we build things moves from digital to physical when we start building prototypes. So we build prototypes, we build tooling, we create samples, and we ship them. We ship them around the planet as fast as we can. And for things that aren't shippable, large things, we ship the people instead. Call that travel. Everyone gets on a plane to go and look at something. So look, this is expensive, takes a huge amount of time, and is not awesome for the planet. So with holographic collaboration, the promise is to address both of these challenges. Number one, let's replace all this mess of pictures and text with a shared hologram. A shared hologram that everybody can understand in full fidelity, very naturally, the way humans are wired. And let's give them complete information all in one place that they can make decisions from. Now, on the physical side, with prototypes and samples, we're not going to get rid of that. There's always a piece of the process where we have to touch and feel things to make things real. But the reality is we can cut that down. And we'll talk a little bit about how that can be reduced. So I'm going to skip now, and I want to talk about a few specific industries and use cases. And these are important ones to us. These are all ones where we've had customers in our early access program and have had an opportunity to dig pretty deeply into the use case and benefit. And let's start with aerospace and defense. This is a big one. I think in many ways this is sort of ground zero for this tech. Now, aerospace and defense, this is an industry where you almost never hear about delays or cost overruns. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So it happens all the time, right? I mean, we're building these enormously complex things with exotic materials, exotic technology, lots of subcontractors. And man, once you start putting this stuff together, if you find problems when you're putting it together, the cost of fixing things is ridiculous. It is extraordinary. And so what you want to do, and this holds for manufacturing anything, we want to do everything digitally before we start doing things physically, right? Because those bits are much, much cheaper to push and move around than the atoms. And quite simply, holograms lets you get much more done with the bits. You're catching the mistakes before you get to what's physical. Now, the other thing that's interesting about aerospace and design and engineering, this is an industry that's characterized by some very structured design review processes between contractors and contracting agencies and subcontractors. And it turns out these very formal design review processes govern money going back and forth on these contracts. So it's extremely important that that communication is as efficient as possible and that these contractors are showing the contracting agency that they're being extremely efficient in their use of technology. And we've had, even in early access, Campfire has been used with, actually with the US government and contractors to date. But I think this represents a new way of doing things and move forward and a new form of communication in that process. Okay, let's hit retail. Retail is not one where design probably comes to mind. But the reality is there's a tremendous amount that goes into designing the retail experience within the store. This is where the displays go, how they're laid out, how people are going to walk through, what products are where on the shelves. And it turns out these decisions are made by a broad group of people. You've got executives for your retailer, you've got merchandisers, a whole team of merchandisers for the retailer, and then you've got your suppliers. And all these folks need to be part of this conversation. And how does this work today? Well, the reality is these people all get together and they make changes to a dark store, a store that's not actually in use. They move physical things around and they ship the people to the dark store, and you walk through and you take a look and you give your feedback. Well, for all of us in XR land, right, that sounds crazy. What should be happening and what can be happening and what will be happening, we take that store, we create it digitally as a hologram, and that team of people in all their respective locations walk through that store together. They walk through that store, they have a conversation as they're walking down the aisle, and they can make changes in real time. So, minutes instead of weeks. Okay. Oh, did I accidentally switch? No, I didn't. Okay, so let me cover apparel. And this is one we're working with a large apparel sportswear manufacturer. They've got challenges on the digital and physical side of the process, but I think it's more interesting with them where the digital is hitting the physical. And that's where you're taking a 3D model and you're trying to explain it to your tooling manufacturer in Asia. Today, that is so complicated that somebody actually gets on a plane to go to Asia and explain how that works. That is a trip that can be completely eliminated. If we can use a hologram, we can expand things, we can measure things and describe that process. Now, once the tooling is made, what happens is a sample is manufactured, and then that sample is shipped back to the US and to multiple locations for people to look at it. Now, what if we scanned that before we shipped it? The first samples are never right. If we scan this and share it as a hologram, we might not have to put that in the mail or ship it at all, right? And we can move straight to the next iteration. So again, the opportunity to turn days and weeks into minutes and save tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. All right, let's move toward the solution. Let's see if I can actually switch. Campfire. So look, holographic collaboration has been a promise for a long time. We've seen it in science fiction. We've seen it in marketing materials for this industry. I got very excited about this capability in building Vuforia. It was actually one that we sought to realize and do in software, but came to the conclusion This is not something that we could make viable on hardware at the time. So what we're doing with Campfire is building new devices and applications, hardware and software together, integrated. And by doing that, we've been able to significantly move the needle in the visual experience, in ease of use, just to get rid of so much of the friction that's involved with these devices today, and workflow integration to make this system work with the tools that you're already using today. And I'm going to talk about a few of the pieces here, starting with the Campfire headset. Each of the devices and applications we have developed bring about new innovations that overcome challenges of the past. And this headset here is one of them. This headset was designed explicitly for holographic collaboration. It turns out, if you're going to communicate using holograms, you have to be able to see them. And if you're going to evaluate design details, you have to be able to see a very high quality image. And if you still want to collaborate with other humans in the world, in a meeting room or on a Zoom call, you need to see them. And if you still need to access existing applications like your CAD or Google Docs or what have you, you still need to see existing screens. The Campfire headset is the only one that actually does that. The fidelity is tremendous. It's actually a 92-degree diagonal field of view that's nearly double of the next best headset that's available. And I don't want to knock the existing headsets that are available because obviously those are mobile. They're not designed for this use case. All right, so let me talk about the Campfire applications. What we want to do is make it as easy to share and collaborate with holograms as it is to work with like Google Docs. In Google Docs, I can open up a new doc and I can grab a bunch of stuff, I can paste it in there, and we could share it with a link and have a discussion about it. That's what we do with Campfire Scenes. We can take more than 30 formats of CAD and 3D scans, drop them into scenes, organize them if we wish, and share them as links. And those links can then be opened with people running the Campfire viewer. That Campfire viewer is running on a PC that my headset is connected to. That viewer will also run on a PC or M1 Mac where there's no headset connected. And while the Campfire headset delivers the best experience for holographic collaboration, turns out the next best is on an iPad. And so we have the Campfire viewer for iPad, which works wonderfully thanks to pretty amazing AR tech from Apple. All right. Holographic collaboration is not a mobile use case. This is something that takes place in offices, in meeting rooms, in desks, and we've developed a device specifically for that. So this is what we call a Campfire Console. It sits on your desk, it sits on a table, a meeting room table, and it delivers shared holograms with the same reliability as a desktop monitor, regardless of the environment that you're in. It also includes an embedded tracking system that brings everybody together into the same coordinate space, whether they're in one room or different ones. Okay. So this is our solution for meeting rooms and desktops. But what about holograms and things that are not going to fit on our desk or on a table? Well, thankfully, we now, as of today, have a solution for that. And we call that the Campfire Studio Console. This is for the big stuff. Jet engines, vehicles, buildings, structures. This goes on the floor of your design studio or workspace, and it lets you move around and within large holograms. And it turns out you can do this really safely and comfortably because you can still see other people, so you're not worried about bumping into them. And just like the desktop console, I can have the studio console in multiple locations around the world, and as long as everybody's opening the same Campfire link, they're just going to feel like they're in the same space together. Now, the studio console brings large holograms, but it's also allowed us to bring a new capability in software. And we call this Group Teleport. So with Group Teleport, you can have your entire team teleport together. So like in that retail use case I was talking about, people can walk down the aisle together of the store or walk around a building and be able to have a conversation as they're doing so. And look, it turns out if you're trying to get work done, it's really important to be there together and to do this as a group. All right. Now, we can teleport at 1-to-1 scale. We can also do a group teleport at Dollhouse scale. So this is actually super fun and powerful, but you can automatically reduce the size of the model to something that's Dollhouse scale, and this actually happens for free. No code writing. You just take your model, you put it in Campfire scenes, designate it as an environment, and boom, you have a group teleport control now and the ability to do it at 1-to-1 scale or at Dollhouse scale, all automatically. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so let me talk a little bit about availability. And first, let me take this opportunity to thank everybody that has applied and participated in our early access program so far. We haven't been able to engage with everybody, but the feedback that we've had has been tremendous. And it's that feedback that has led us to the Studio Console. So we're going to be continuing with our early access program through the end of the year and commercial shipments in Q4. And our commercial shipments will be prioritized based on early access application date. So for those of you that are interested in getting your hands on the first batch, please apply on the website at campfire3d.com. And I'd also like to invite everybody here to come check out Campfire in booth 518. So we'll have the Studio Console live, and you can really appreciate what this experience looks and feels like. And I will also be here for the duration of the show, so feel free to reach out. I think I probably have my email address here on the next slide. And I'd love to have a conversation and reconnect with folks. And I think with that, I have succeeded in leaving some time for questions. Oh, any questions? I'm a little blinded by the light. Is there a question here? Yeah.
I have a question. I don't know if projecting works for the live stream. So, I'm curious about embedding holograms into any other applications. Is there a possibility for that? Like, basically, since you're able to import 40, I think you said 40 different formats.
Right.
Using your 3D imaging or the 3D asset pipeline to import objects into another application. Is that a use case that works for you or not?
What you can do is share a link that goes to the Campfire project and to the hologram. So that link is shareable, but at this point, there's not a way to display the holograms inside Campfire in another application. Love the thought, though. Others? This one here?
Yeah, hi. Thanks so much for presenting. I wanted to ask, is it on the roadmap at all if you're talking about AR collaboration and a globally distributed workforce, perhaps asynchronous? Are you guys looking into some sort of turnkey solution for like photorealistic representations of like digital humans who can operate between various offices? Anything like that?
Our focus on hologram fidelity is with the content and the models. I think we look forward to a time when we'll have photorealistic people, but our solution to that problem today is keep doing what you're doing. You use Campfire alongside a Zoom or a Teams or even a conference call in the same way you would a Google Doc. And the representation of people inside Campfire is really just their head. And so you still have your Zoom or Teams, you still have your video call where you can see facial expressions for remote people. But when you're virtual, you can see where that head is pointing in 3D space, and you can also see what it is they're pointing at with their phone or their controller inside the environment.
And then like in terms of like a virtual assistant, like an embodied AI, something like that?
Haven't talked a lot about embodied AI as people, but certainly an interesting idea.
Thanks.
I think we got one here.
Two questions, and
Sure.
I'm forgetting the second one. So the first one, though, So I saw you had 1-to-1 ratio, and then you had Dollhouse.
Right.
Right. Is there like a zooming in capability, or is it those two that are available? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so with the environment scenes and what we've done with Studio, you're either at 1-to-1 or Dollhouse.
Cool.
And Dollhouse is done just dynamically based on the size of kind of the campfire ring. With other campfire scenes, when you're not in environments, you can scale things to your heart's content. So you could actually bring in that same model, not as an environment, and do whatever you want to scale it.
And then considering, you drop the CAD files in, and maybe it's like a cabinet or whatever, right? I haven't seen this capability yet, but is there an option? Let's say it's a cabinet, where a person could go and open the door of the cabinet and close the door. Do you get what I'm saying? I mean, there's going to be. I'm looking at much more complicated situations, but something like that, is that possible?
Yeah. So moving the door on the hinge, probably not at this point. What's coming in now is we're bringing in the entire model hierarchy. So that's retained in the Campfire viewer so that you can hide and show different pieces of the hierarchy. And then you can also pick up and move different pieces. So you could pick up and move, but respecting the the hinges and so forth, not yet. Yep. Other questions? Got a quiet group. Oh, one right here.
In terms of CAD, are there limitations of file size? Do you have to prep some of the CAD to reduce size and poly count, or is that seamless?
So Campfire's rendering on a PC. So we're going to be bound by the size of the GPU and GPU memory that you've got in the PC you're using. So the more that you throw at it, the bigger the models you'll be able to deal with.
I think we have time for one more question, if there's one more.
All righty. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate you spending the time. Hope this was useful, and love to see you in the booth. All right, take care.